Welcome to La Ventanita, the Miami Herald Food podcast. I'm the Miami Herald Food editor, Carlos Frias, joined every week by my buddy over there, Amy Reyes.
Hello, Carlos.
Man, hello. I am so excited for this time of
Oh my
year
God. It's so
because
exciting.
it's the most wonderful time
It's the time
to
when all
eat
of the people who
food.
like to eat the crusty critters of the sea get to go bananas.
Stone crab season, baby. It's right around the corner. We're literally 2 days away, so
Well,
I'm
I
I'm
have
getting
my
geared
rule
up.
about seafood. Like I don't mess with anything that's like in a rocky, shelly thing, like a mussel or an oyster or
You
a
need it to look more
clam.
like actual life, like a life form. You feel better when you're eating something that
Yeah, if
that you
it's
know
not just
felt
like snot in
pain.
a rock, I'll eat it. Yeah, no. But
No,
something I
seriously,
will, I'll eat a
stone
stone
crab season.
crab. I'll eat a stone crab. I'll eat like a stone crab, like a little piece. I won't go like bananas, like it won't be my whole meal. Like if you give me one claw, I'll eat that and then I'll go on and I'll eat something else.
My
But
my
like,
favorite thing is just waiting. First of all, waiting a couple weeks, like not rushing out the day of. Like I've lived without it for 6 months. I can
hmm
go like another week or two, and then going to like a. I like going to like a seafood like a market, a seafood market.
hmm
There's a place by me, Florida Fresh Fisheries, and just getting like a plate full. And like me and my kid, there's not all of us love stone crabs, but like my middle daughter Amelia loves them, and we went out there and just like got like a plate of them, got like 50, $60 worth of stone crab and just like lemon and a little dipping sauce. And oh man, it's just the
have you ever
best. I
seen
just
people
look
selling
forward
them
to
on the
it.
side of the street?
Yes, because this
Yes,
is Miami. Like,
I see.
what
I see them
haven't
in
you been?
Kendall.
Yesterday, I was driving up Red Road, and right on the side of the street, there was like a beautifully painted sign, like on the side of the road that said queso fresco, like
Okay,
just like kind of like
that will not
Venezuelan,
make you sick at
Colombian.
all.
No, no, I'm sure that's totally fine. But you know what? I bet you it's totally fine.
I'm
I bet you it's
saying.
totally fine. I mean, don't send me your doctor bills if you get
I
sick
know.
and eat it, but I bet you it's really delicious because like anything homemade, it's probably
Well, anything
really well
homemade
thought
is
out,
either
really
gonna
delicious.
kill you or it's gonna be really great. Like
Right,
it's they're selling it because that is their thing that they do well. And everybody
right.
tells them, "Oh, tú deberías vender eso." And then they're like,
Exactly.
"Okay, I'll do it in la calle."
That's right. Like my mom makes the best flan, and everybody's like, "You should sell that flan."
And then they're like,
And then
"Let's get a truck. we'll just park on we'll park on Bird Road and 127th Avenue and just, set up shop.
talk
Nobody
about
will care."
going down the rabbit hole, just
Oh my God,
severely.
Carlos, our fan is here.
Yes. Let's give a
Vanessa.
shout out. Let's give a shout out to
We
Vanessa
have to give
Budd,
a shout out to Vanessa.
who I
She is our
think has
biggest fan.
not only has she, I think, listened to every episode that we've done since we started broadcasting a little over 6 months ago. She stays for the whole thing.
The
Like she
whole
leaves it on in the
thing.
background.
Like my husband won't even listen to the whole thing. You know what I'm
Vanessa,
saying?
we appreciate you. We
We
see
appreciate you,
you,
Vanessa.
and we appreciate you. Hey,
We love
can
our
we? Can,
fan.
I know that we were talking about stone crabs and such, but can we talk for a minute about our friends on the west coast, on the left coast of Florida? I know we talked a little bit about it. Hurricane Ian struck over there, and folks are there has been a severe loss of life. I think it counts over 100 now. It's like 115. And lesser down the scale, but also still important, are people who've lost their livelihoods. And our colleague Howard Cohen wrote this really interesting, moving story about the Lighthouse Cafe, which a lot of folks know on Sanibel Island. It's been there since the fifth. No, I'm sorry. It's been, I think, maybe since the 50s. So I know his family has owned it since '84. So it's been in the family for almost 40 years.
Right.
The gentleman who owns it, and there's these incredible pictures of just where the water came in, and it's the water. I think it went up something like 6 feet in height. Like you can see it on your menu board how high the
Mm-hmm.
water went,
Yikes.
and it's from what I've read, folks have really lined up to help. They've folks have come out to literally put in sweat equity and clean it out, and like a lot of folks are going to stay. And I want to say that there's a GoFundMe started over there. So, folks, that's what you realize, that it's not, it's obviously the loss of life is incalculable, right? But then there are other things where people who make their whole lives and their whole livelihoods in this area are affected.
Yeah, and Lighthouse Cafe is one of those places that like if you go to Sanibel, you're gonna go there. It's
Right.
iconic in a way. It's just kind of like part of the, just part of the matrix, just part of the tapestry. Like when you go to Sanibel, that you're gonna end up there at one point. I have a picture of myself with my daughter when she was like 4 and I was pregnant, hanging out at the Lighthouse Cafe, and like it's one of those places you have to go to it, and I'm hoping that they can rebuild and come back better because Sanibel is a beautiful place to go, and everybody in South Florida loves to escape there. So we're
Yeah,
all rooting for them.
it's very Versailles like. It's very iconic. So we're wishing them the best. And I know that they have a GoFundMe page. So I think if you go to GoFundMe and you search Lighthouse Cafe, you'll find that and see how they're doing. I think they were over their goal, but when you're rebuilding a whole restaurant, I guess every little bit helps.
Yeah, those pictures made it look like they got
It
a lot of
was
work
it
to
was
do.
it was significant. Can I say that though this weekend to celebrate my cousin's birthday, my cousin Julio? So happy belated to my cousin Julio.
We're
We
about to talk about the
debuted.
planchita, aren't we? We're about to
Yes,
talk.
we are.
We're about to talk about the
Yes, we
planchita.
are. We debuted La Planchita. Now, I think the episode wouldn't be like our show wouldn't be complete unless I brought it up in one way or another because, like, you talk about your children. La Planchita, we used it for the first time. And Amy, to quote that Johnny Cochran character from Steinfeld, it is real and it is spectacular. I mean, it not only looks wonderful, it works exactly how you expect a commercial press to work.
Okay,
So
here's
like
the planchita again for anybody who may have missed it. It is
that's right.
shiny, it is chromy, and then it's got some gold-ish accents, and it is everything that Carlos could ever want in a plancha.
And it's like it's one thing to look good, but you know what? It just performed, man. Like
Okay,
we
well, tell me
we
what you made. Please go
all
on. I
right.
need some details.
So if you're watching the show, you can see it on the screen. Like it's sort of my let's call it a flagami sandwich because it's not a
Okay,
Cuban sandwich,
we'll call it the
and
flagami.
we'll call it the flagami sandwich. So what is? It's sweet ham. It's smoked ham that I got from Babe's Meat and Counter down in Palmetto Bay.
Did you go gathering ingredients for this sandwich? Did you go on a
I
journey?
I was foraging for meat.
Oh my God, you did a whole journey to make this sandwich. Okay, continue. You
And
went to
then
Babe's
it's
meat
I
encounter
went
for.
to Babe's Meat and Counter where I got also two kinds of mustard. They have like a really horseradishy spicy mustard and then a sweet grain mustard. So that both went into a sauce that I made for it. That's got also got mayo and um, a little ketchup and a little prepared horseradish, and chopped up, diced up onions and pickles. And then I added, it's got chorizo, it's got salami, it's got roasted pork from El Palacio de los Jugos. I made a
O
little
sea,
home.
this is your second destination.
Yes. So my second destination then, Palacio de los Jugos, to get roast pork. And then I go down the street to Pinocho Bakery, and I got 2 loaves of Cuban bread for a whopping total of $3, which is insane. And then I came home and made a mojo for the pork inside the sandwich. So I stacked and layered those things, put it at a 350-degree planchita, pressed that down with butter on both ends. Amy, I was in heaven, really speechless, really speechless.
Wow.
It did really well. I was very happy with it. I encourage everyone to follow your dreams. If your dream is to make
Dreams come true.
a ridiculous planchita that you can enjoy making sandwiches, do that. If it's some other crazy thing, do the crazy thing that everyone says you're crazy about. So
Yeah,
enjoy it.
I really I have to agree. This was crazy, and it it is actually something that makes you happy and brings you joy. So
So I'm
what
gonna
can I
lean
say?
into it.
I can't make too much fun of you. You did go to 4 different stores or 3 different stores to make a sandwich, but I mean, that brought you joy.
It really did. It
Yeah,
really
people
did. I
make fun of
regret.
me for getting up and like riding my bike in the morning. So I mean, if you need to drive around all over Miami so that you can like honor your planchita with the proper ingredients, that is your truth.
Listen, you fitness and I'm fitness in my mouth.
Uh-huh. Fitness in your
So
mouth.
right,
Okay,
fitness and
well, I
fitness
just
in my
want to
mouth.
know when I get some of that because I want some sandwich for me.
Well, it won't be this weekend because I'll be at the Florida LSU game. driving up to watch a game at Florida for the first time since I graduated as a fan. Since I graduated more than 20 years ago, more than 30 years ago.
Damn.
I have no idea. I can't do the math anymore. So I'll be doing that and watching it with my kid. How weird is that?
Oh, that's
I'm going
very
to a
weird.
game with my daughter. That'll be very strange.
I went to a University of Michigan football game once with my parents, and I was so hungover. It was very embarrassing.
That's super embarrassing. Come on.
Very, very, very embarrassing.
Listen, well, my kid is 19, so I can't say what we will and won't allow her to do. But we're going to stay within the law. Let's say that.
Well, I'm
Stay
saying
within the
you
law.
don't know what they're up there doing.
No, I don't. I don't want to know.
That's why they're away, because you don't want to know.
I don't want to know. Go be an adult. Go be an
Yes.
adult, and don't hesitate to call if you need help. Really, that's
Please, don't do anything stupid.
yes. I told my daughter, she's like, because I worry about her, because she's studying a really intense field. She wants to go into medicine, and she's on the dean's list, all that stuff. But she always sounds really, really stressed out, and I always say, make some time for yourself. And she goes, "Don't worry, Dad. I work hard, but I play hard." And I was like, "That's good.
Don't tell me
but
that.
as long as it doesn't involve the authorities,
Yes.
I'm okay with that." Mm-hmm. So listen, I think the whole reason we're on today is to talk about stone crab season. So I'm really excited
Let's do
to
it.
talk to our guest today. And our guest today is Stephen Sawitz. You should know that the man behind Joe's Stone Crab is actually a Stephen. Stephen is the great-grandson of Joe Weiss, who founded the Miami Beach restaurant in 1913. 4 generations of his family have steered it into iconic status. And now it's Stephen's turn. He's the latest steward of Joe's Stone Crab. So I want to talk to Stephen about what it's like to know your whole life that you're going to be handed the reins to a restaurant, an institution really, that'll be part of your own legacy. Because Joe's isn't just a restaurant, it's the most popular and visible endpoint for an entire industry, the stone crab trapping, which props up a huge part of the Florida economy. Joe's even has its own fishing fleet. And that industry takes a beating every time a hurricane like Hurricane Ivan devastates the Florida coast. But Stephen's been through this and more already. They've already overcome hurricanes. And he's kept Joe's going through COVID by turning the genteel dining experience into an outdoor affair. It's not an easy task for a restaurant that prides itself on a refined white linen tablecloth service. So let's talk to Stephen about all things Joe. Welcome to Stephen. Oh, there he is.
Uh-oh.
We have sound troubles.
We can't hear you.
We'll let Pierre put him backstage and fix out the sound troubles, and we.
Wait,
will
he's
keep
got the person.
figuring
There
it
she
out.
is.
She's got the
She's
person.
coming. She'll fix him up.
All right, we'll give him 30 seconds to put on. If not, we'll just put him backstage. He's trying to figure it out. I think he can hear us, and we can see.
He can definitely hear
he
us.
Can hear us, but we can't hear him. I think his earphones are not hooked up. So, Pierre, you want to put him backstage, and then we'll banter a little bit till we have Stephen going. Yeah, we'll just banter a little bit, and then when we get him back in, we'll just pop him right in, and that's fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, then let's talk about the other thing that we were going to talk about.
Yeah. So, out there in on Miller Road, there's this place called Love Story. There's this shack that looks like it's a hunting lodge, and
Yes.
and it's been like a couple things, and it's never opened for a long term, but now it's going to be a restaurant called Love Story.
It's
And
like a wine bar that has
Yes.
really gone hard for the let's create an Instagrammable moment. Like they have all of these different corners inside of it that look like it's go take a picture there. You're here to take a beautiful picture. Like they have
Yes.
this phone booth with all these flowers coming out and stuff. Very fancy.
and it's all like rom-com related. It's like a
Yes,
rom-com.
their
came to
menu
life.
is very, very rom-com related.
Yeah, like they have the Careless Whisper tuna tartare,
Mm-hmm.
the I can't fight this feeling anymore salmon. 'Cause that rolls off the tongue.
These are good names for meals.
And if you go there, you have to have for dessert the magic churro. Make your own joke here, Magic
Dude.
Mike fans.
I need magic churros in my life.
I listen. That's a problem for you and Tony to work out. You want to try Steven again?
All right, bring him
Steven
back.
again. Hey, Steven.
Oh no.
He's still muted. He's not. We can't. We don't got it. We don't got it together.
I'm crying. I'm
We'll try it
crying.
We'll try it again. Amy, where did you eat last week?
Oh, last week my kid was sick. I couldn't. But
Oh no.
tonight I'm going out. I'm
Can
going
you hear
out.
me now?
Oh,
Yes, we can
there
hear
he
you.
is. We can hear you perfectly, Stephen.
Oh,
Good
you have to
morning.
tell us what she did. What miraculous button did she push?
Unmute. Yeah. You know,
You know
It's a
what?
thing. It
That's one of
happens.
those.
it's okay. It's all right.
This is one of those
Fun of a
things
little
that
drama.
throughout the pandemic, none of us have figured out, and we still will never figure out, and that's
Nope.
fine. It'll be one of
Yeah.
those things that we leave
Sure.
that is unexplained, like Area 51, is it? Like it'll just be unexplained why we couldn't figure that out.
Right.
Stephen, well, thanks again for having us. So we have to start by telling us about the amazing about page on Joe's Stone Crab's website.
It is
which
a work
is-
of art.
It is hilariously honest.
Poetry.
It is folksy history of Joe's that includes this line about your grandfather, Jesse Weiss. Quote, he was a scoundrel, a womanizer to the 100th degree, a gambler, but everyone who came to Joe's wanted to see Jesse.
Right.
And that is just, it's poetry.
Well, that's just the half of it. Yeah. He was married 7 times, my grandfather.
Wow. A glutton for
Wow.
punishment.
He one of the most amazing people I ever knew. When I was a kid, I didn't know anything like that. You know, I just looked at him. We called him Papa. My sister and I adored him. My mom and dad adored him. My grandmother, of course, she was number 5 and number 7, but a very important, person in our lives too. She worshipped him too.
Wait, your
And-
grandma was number 5 and number 7.
Right.
So
he
they got married,
remarried her.
divorced, then remarried.
Right.
And there
Correct.
was a wife in between.
Correct. Right. I know.
That's such an amazing story.
Etc.
Oh my God, I wanna
Maybe.
see
I mean,
this
there might have
movie.
been more. I don't know. But he was. They. Have you ever heard of the character Damon Runyon? Like a Damon Runyon character. That's what he was. He was a character, and he lived life the way he wanted to. Nobody scripted his life. He really lived an outrageous life. I mean, when the first time I went on an airplane was with him. I was 4 years old, and he came over to our house, and he asked my mom if he could just take me to lunch, and she said sure. Well, we flew to Nassau for lunch from Miami.
Oh my God.
And she didn't know where I was. I was happy. I was on an airplane for the first time with the propellers, Eastern Airlines, back in the day. We had lunch, and I think he gambled a little bit, and then at the airport, and then we came back later that day, and my mom didn't know where I was or my grandfather, but nothing should surprise her because she grew up with this.
Yep.
I mean, he gambled. I'll give you an idea. Across the street from Joe's, there's several buildings, the Apogee, Portofino, and South Point Tower. There used to be a dog track, a kennel, racing track across the street, and a huge parking lot where those buildings stand. His parents, Joe and Jenny, earned enough money to buy that land so that they could have it for the Joe's, parking or whatever. They were just thinking ahead. And they made one little fatal mistake. They gave him the cash to take to the closing.
Oh no. Don't it's like go
Oh,
buy a
no.
cow, and he came back with magic beans.
Oh, he came back with magic beans.
He went to Hialeah racetrack
Oh my God.
and lost
Oh,
it
no.
all.
He bet the
Hey.
pups.
My God.
He bet it all. Now, years later, like 70 plus years later, Senator Ted Kennedy walks into the restaurant and he said, I used to come here with my father. My father used to, whatever. And he used to own Hialeah racetrack. And I looked at him and said, oh, so we put you through college. I mean, this guy, I couldn't believe it. The history just came back and bounced back at him. It was funny.
That now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading on the website that even though Joe's opened in 1913, it wasn't until 1921 that people that was it Jesse or Joe that
No, it was
decided
Joe.
that-
He got what's the word? He got some kind of a
Ichthyologist.
An
Okay.
Yes, Amy was betting that you wouldn't be able to say that
I was
word.
like, make him
So
say that word.
Oh boy.
in your face,
Oh
Amy
no, I was
Reyes.
raised with that word. A marine biologist, also I guess known as an ichthyologist, and
Look at that.
Ichthyologist.
this professor from Harvard was studying the marine life in Biscayne Bay, and he came across these crabs that kids were playing with and poking and taunting in the water. So he caught some and brought them over to the only one of the few restaurants on Miami Beach and gave them to my great grandfather Joe, who it piqued his curiosity. So he started to cook them and see if they were edible. And he found out that these rocky shelly things that Amy referred to, they were edible and they tasted much better cold. Now, here's the secret. If you go down to the Keys, for instance, or Everglades City, and you watch them cook them as right after they're caught, you can eat them hot then. But once you chill them and put them on ice and send them to Joe's, for instance, and eat them, don't reheat them.
Okay.
Eat them cold. But if you eat them out of the original boiling water where you cooked them, they're going to be fantastic. Otherwise, when they're chilled, you may want to use, I don't know how this comes up, but you'll use the mustard sauce.
Mustard sauce.
And then maybe finish off your meal with a slice of key lime pie.
He came prepared.
Oh yeah, I came prepared. I could even do the whipped cream for you.
Yes.
But this is from
Yes.
the can.
You know what?
I'm on a little keto,
right in my
so
mouth.
forget it.
Uh-oh. Well, you can eat the crab. You can eat the crab claws then.
Absolutely keto friendly, but I'm not going to cheat. I'm going to give them back to myself later. Yeah.
So it's perfectly American scientific to come down and be like, let's study these crabs. First things first, let's boil it. and try
Let's
to
eat it. Can we eat it?
Now, but they found out years later that the crab body, there was no meat in the crab body, really, edible meat on these particular kinds of crabs. So they found out that if you just remove the claws and throw the body back in the water and you do it properly, the crab will survive and regrow new claws. They call that like regeneration.
Is that how farming happens or no? Is that like how,
well, they're not farmed.
or was
but
that how the fishing or the trapping happens or no?
That's part of the crab claws are removed on the boat, on the fishing vessel, and then the crab bodies are thrown back into the water where hopefully they'll regenerate and then end up in a trap again, and the cycle continues.
Interesting.
It's a little bit of the folks who make a living out of this understand that, like, yeah, you could take both claws. In most cases they only take one, if I'm not mistaken, right? And
well, they can take two, but it's under certain there's certain circumstances.
Yeah, it's the idea that, like, hey, listen, if I make this thing viable, if I make this little creature viable to come back next year, or 2 or 3 years from now, that's going to be better for me in the long term than me just, kind of thinking in a very short term kind of way.
True.
Why is the season? Why is it from October to was it April? Like, what is it about that time of year that makes them best to catch? Is that they come closer to shore, or like what's the idea?
Well, there were two reasons, I think. One of them was that there was legislation that was promoted and lobbied by my grandfather because business dropped off back in the day from May, June, July, August, September. So why fish when business dropped off and Joe's
it would be a waste,
very,
right?
very slow. The other important thing, though, was that the spawning season begins in early May.
Okay.
So they wanted the females to have a better chance at creating smaller stone crab babies. So that was the reason why they said, let's pause and give them the spawning stone crabs a chance to recreate.
So what
and have
happens
more
to people who don't follow the rules? What are the consequences for like not following the rules of stone crab season?
Heavy fines, possibly jail. You know, you're not even allowed to bring a stone crab on the land. They must be thrown back into the water and kept in around the water. If you land a stone crab, severe penalties, very very costly, possibly jail time. I don't believe anybody really has or been caught doing it. I had to do it one time down at Sea Camp in Big Pine Key, Florida, when I was a kid, and I had to have special permission from the Department of Natural Resources to do that, a real document, and we put them in tanks down there.
I
But
was going to say, what happens at Sea Camp? That's like Florida's version of Space Camp.
Yeah. Yeah, I went down there in the early 70s, I think 71 and 72, and spent about 8 or 9 weeks down there. It was wonderful. You know, you get certified. They have marine biology courses, lots of aquariums and scuba and skin diving. It's a lot of fun.
Stephen, did you always know that you were going to go into this family business? Like, was it always, because I know that is always the big thing with especially restaurants, but any business really is, will the next generation be interested in doing this thing that our family is known for? Did you always know that you were going to do that?
Well, yes and no. How do I put this? Joe's was one of the few things that Joe's was a place that was not just a place of business. Joe's was family to me. My grandparents lived upstairs as a child. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to go upstairs and hang out with them. And
Wow.
when I got older, and my mom grew up upstairs when she was a child. She was born in Miami. So I was always here on the weekends. My sister and I were here on the weekends when I was a kid, like my daughter is now. She's here more often than I was, but it's up to her. Now, when I was a kid, I had to work in the kitchen. I got to know everybody that had been here for years before I got here. They were family. The people that worked behind the stoves, they were household names. And I was more of a kitchen person earlier in my life. I didn't go out in the dining room that often. It's not like, well, my parents didn't keep me from going out there, but I just
Chained
the
to the kitchen.
They chained me to the
Boil
kitchen.
those crabs, boy.
But it was, I was told, if you want to buy a bicycle, you get to work for your money. And so when I got a car, and my parents bought me a 1969 Pontiac Le Mans in 1972. And it wasn't, oh, gee, we want to give you a car. They just did, or 73. They just didn't want me to keep driving from my house. They didn't want to keep carpooling to Ransom from Miami Shores. That's where I went to high school. So they wanted, the car was practical for them, not just me.
Uh-huh. And
so I had to pay for gas. So I had to work on the weekends. And I was just working here all the time, and I loved it. I love the responsibility. I grew up, there were some younger people in the kitchen that were like part of family. They were again, Paulie Wilson, who made the key lime pie and the hash browns at night. His sons, Steve and Paul Wilson Jr., worked at Joe's too. So we were a team. And then when I graduated from college, and we opened for lunch in November of 1979. Steve and Paul Wilson were part of that team as well.
So 1979, is that when?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You kind of took over? No, that's what I was just going to ask. Is that when you
it
really got involved?
It wasn't a takeover.
Right, of course.
It was a grooming process. I went to hotel restaurant school at Cornell from 1975 to 1979.
Cornell, it's gorgeous. Isn't that the same?
It's a beautiful, gorgeous. Yeah, gorgeous.
There's lots of gorges in.
Yeah, Cornell. It is a beautiful campus, and there are gorges for sure, and it is gorgeous. It's except when it rains, which is often. too.
Yeah,
It
and
snowed.
in the winter when it's brutally cold and bleak. But I'm sure you were glad
Sure
to
you
get
loved
there
all
and,
4
and
years.
come back to
Yeah,
Joe's in South Florida.
Miami prepared me very well for upstate New
I'm
York.
sure.
Let me tell you. Yeah, the North Face did, but wow, that was brutal. The weather was brutal.
So you get
That's why
back down here.
when I was reading on the website about how they told Joe to come down because he had a breathing issue and he was like, I need to come for my asthma. I was like,
Right.
that sounds like
That
sounds like
sounds like a
lore.
story.
That sounds like a story. Because
There's
yeah.
probably some smog or something. I don't know. But New York back then, who knows? That was in the early 1900s, right? Um, but doctors used to recommend cities to move to. They didn't necessarily have the medication. They
Oh
had
my God.
geographical cures back then.
Well, I remember if you ever go do the tour at Vizcaya, they tell you the whole story about how Charles Deering was recommended to come to Miami because of his, I don't know, his vapors. He had like rheumatism or something that he needed to take baths in salt water or something like that. So
His lumbago.
Yeah.
He had the lumbago. I don't
Sure.
even know what
yeah,
that
so
is.
medicine was weird back then. But
Yeah.
since you guys have been on South Beach for so long, like what can you tell us about the evolution of South Beach as a destination? Like what were the highs and what were the lows of being just an institution that's just witnessed everything going on around it?
Wow. What were the highs and lows? Well, let's see. Let's talk about the lows first, and we'll end on a positive note. Okay.
Okay, that's a good
That's
plan.
Good strategy.
Okay. So the lows were pre-air conditioning, lots of mosquitoes and crazy little things running around, and tourists would flee Miami Beach during the summer months, okay, because of the bugs and the reptiles. Okay, that's number one. And it was swampy and, no air conditioning. Then, of course, we had World War I and the Great Depression and on, World War II and the Korean War and, recessions and, of course, the pandemic we had. And we also had back in the late 70s, early 80s, the Mariel boat lift, which really flooded Miami and South Beach in particular with a lot of, Cuba's finest. Castro opened up his prisons, and many of those people ended up on South Beach. And so South Beach at that point, up until that point, much of it was a geriatric ghetto.
Yeah, it's funny because it's funny you mentioned that. I had some cousins that came over during the Mario boat lift, and so we would come visit them, and they were these older kind of tenement buildings, apartments, and it was like you said, it was mostly old folks, and parts of it were really run down. It's funny because we just saw Scarface the other day, and it really is representative of what that part of South Beach looked like. It was very kind of like old timey Florida, kind of run down, and it's interesting.
True.
And it's interesting that Joe's was still this kind of more elevated place to go in the middle of all that. Did the feel of Joe's change at all to what? Because now it's very refined. I mean, you go there really just to have a beautiful night out, right? Did it always have that feel, or did it go during the Jesse era from a more like rough
Like a
and
crab
tumble
shack.
kind of place into what it is
Yeah.
now? Because I have no reference point for something like that in that.
Well, I think that Joe's has evolved into what it could have been. In other words, I think vision helped propel Joe's, and that's why we're still here. I don't think we would still be here if we did not evolve in a proper, slow, methodical, careful way. We didn't change course quickly, really. We there was a lot of contemplation. My mom was very instrumental in that. For instance, my mother and grandmother always believed that it was a good idea to buy as many parcels of property around the restaurant. These were old homes that we used to use, cottages that we used to use for storage of documents and old equipment. Well, now we have a bigger restaurant because of that.
Right.
That was it was intuition. It was like a defensive move to protect Joe's. The South Beach Redevelopment Agency, I don't know if you remember that, but that was in the late 70s, early 80s. where there was a vision created by the redevelopment agency and the architects. They took this area south of 5th, which was South Beach.
Mhm.
South Beach was not north of 5th Street. South Beach was from 5th Street to 4th Street, all the way down to Government Cut.
Yep.
There was
That's
a
interesting.
vision-
I never knew that. I thought South Beach was actually from 5th Street to 13th Street. Like I thought the Ocean Drive
Oh, no.
area.
I
Right.
grew up with South Beach being Penrod's, basically, which
Right.
is just up the road,
Exactly.
which is now Nikki Beach, right? Or is that what
Yes.
that is?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
they call it.
Yes, yes.
Penrod's.
And
Yep,
so
that
when
was South Beach.
So when do you remember when, let's see, Ocean Drive, Scarface, for instance. Okay, on Ocean Drive, there was that scene. I couldn't even watch it. I had to put
Oh
my
yeah,
hand
it's bad.
with the chainsaw.
The
I was like,
chainsaw,
yeah,
yeah.
it's terrifying.
I almost left the movie theater at that
Oh, no.
scene. I just don't have a stomach for that. But that movie and Christo the artist, remember when they wrapped the islands with pink?
Yes.
And then Miami Vice came. Remember Miami Vice? This
course.
was all happening in Art Deco and Barbara Capitman, and these great old buildings were getting painted. And all of a sudden, we have this beautiful architectural gem on Ocean Drive, and she protected so many buildings that could have been torn down. So people had vision. They had the luck of the law because they had federal law protecting these buildings. And then you had the modeling agencies coming down, and Michelle Pommier was the first modeling agency to come to Miami Beach. She beat Eileen Ford. I mean, she was way ahead of her time. But Joe's always stayed true to itself. We always had a policeman out front, you know, Joe's was protected. Joe's was nurtured because I think because it's a family business, there was heritage, and we just believed in ourselves and we believed in the community, and that one day that Joe's, after buying that land, it would pay off. And it did pay off because we have our own parking. We have our own, we're very independent. We have parking on the east side. We have parking on the west side. We have a takeaway on the north side. We have parking above that. We've grown slowly and methodically, and our customers help grow us. Our customers help grow us. That's
Stephen,
that's an important point.
Exactly. And so like that customer experience is such a unique part of Miami, right? Like the open secret is that you have to tip the captain, the head waiter, to get a good table. Like that's don't squirm. It's an open secret, Stephen. Everybody knows it. So like what is a good tip to get a good table?
A good tip to get a good table is to get here at 5 o'clock.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, here's the thing.
Fair enough.
I think first of all, I think it's, you know, if you want to tip the maitre d' on the way out,
Mhm.
that's between you and the maitre d'.
And
okay.
God.
And God.
Right. And I think you don't have to. I mean, there's always the takeaway. But the family did not institute the tipping policy, obviously. I mean, that's something
that's
a very Miami
that part of
Miami
it.
thing to do.
Yes,
It
I love
comes
that part
with
of it
the
because
territory.
it's a little bit like if you know, you know. You know,
Yeah.
like and honestly, if you're going to this place that's really a singular experience and you almost want to give back and make sure that place is still around, you know, and it's more than just paying your bill at the end. Like it's, you know, you want to be a part of the experience. It's a little bit like the speakeasy. Like that's the
Right.
thing that you gotta know. So
It's true. It's very true. I can tell you that there are regulars that have been coming for years, and either they do or they don't pass gratuity to the maitre d' or the seating captains. They have other ways of showing their gratitude. One of them is,
Oh, please
Yeah.
tell us.
Man.
It's
How
a family show.
how about front row tickets to Frank Sinatra in the day, or tickets to concerts, or golfing privileges at Lagorce Country Club? I'm just saying.
Oh,
That
it is
sounds
good to
like-
be a captain at Joe's. It
Oh,
is
You know
good
what?
to be a captain at Joe's.
How about a
hard
bag
work.
of mangoes from Kendall?
Ooh, ooh.
That you know what? They would not turn that down.
I'm
Amy.
sure
I
they
would
wouldn't
love-
turn that down.
I would love to see the cataloging of the things that the captain is offered throughout the time. Like, besides, money is so passe, but things like that I find incredibly interesting.
You know, another, like, if you know thing about Joe's that everybody everybody who knows points this out. It's don't sleep on the fried chicken.
Mhm.
Everybody tells me, you can go for the stone crabs and everything, but the fried chicken is really, really, really worth, worth the try. Don't just go there for claws.
Vale
the
la
fri-
pena. It's worth
Vale
it.
la pena.
Yep.
And like
Yeah, no, the
fri-
fried chicken's great.
the fried chicken is like, and also $15 is the takeaway window. You go there, like isn't that right?
Oh, how about $8.95
Oh,
for a half-
$8.95. Is that
for a half a
$9?
fried chicken?
$9 for half a fried chicken. That's I forget.
Whoa.
Maybe it's because I was thinking maybe I've gotten two halves at some point and I was thinking 15. But that is like $9, and it's the crispiest fried chicken you can get. It's really perfect.
We
Hey,
pride
Steven,
ourselves on that.
is there another Joe? Like, I've been in Chicago and I've seen the Joe's Stone Crab, and I was like, what is the relation to the Joe's in Miami?
Oh, great question. There is a relation. We created a partnership between us and a wonderful restaurant group in Chicago, out of Chicago, and based in Chicago called Let Us Entertain You. And the chairman founder is a gentleman by the name of Richard Melman, Melman, or Melman. And he's been in the restaurant business since the 1970s. And we entered into a license agreement with them. They are the licensee, we are the licensor, and we are also partners in that restaurant. And they are like cousins of us. Their name is not Joe Stone Crab, literally. They'll answer the phones, hello Joe's or hello Joe Stone Crab, but their real name is Joe's Seafood Prime Steak and Stone Crab. And the reason they don't prioritize the name Stone Crab is sometimes during shortages, they may not have them, or they'll be limited in what they can get, because the mothership where I'm sitting right now with the name right behind me, Joe's,
You
is
guys
the
get the
mothership.
crabs.
We do, and they know that. They know that.
They'll get
But
whatever you want to send them.
They know
Right.
who's number one. They know
They
who's
know,
the top,
and they're
the
very
boss.
they're very respectful. They understand that, and those three restaurants are in the top 20 highest grossing restaurants, with us being in the top as well. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that's the reality of it. They run a great operation. It's a testament to our name. It's a testament to the brand that we created here, and a testament to their ability to run restaurants extremely well.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for a restaurant that's. I mean, you guys are technically open 6 months out of the year, and
A little bit longer, but that's
a little bit
yeah.
longer than that. And
Yeah.
you have like a $40 million revenue from what I was reading. I mean, like it is a monster of an operation. It is like a truly monster of an operation to basically take the summers off, because that's when there's no stone crabs, and say like, we're just gonna make this our thing. Like, we're not gonna do steak in the summer. We're just
Right.
we're just gonna close, and we're gonna stick with stone crabs, and I think that's part of what makes it iconic, is that you can't always get Joe's.
But you can't always get what you want, right?
That's right.
Here's the thing. We have expanded. We were talking about vision and did Joe's change and what's happened in the evolution. We have opened a takeaway that's a bona fide business and a shipping business, which is its own. Now, when you collectively add the dining room, lunch and dinner, plus takeaway and shipping, you reach that $40 million number. Okay, so it's not just dining room that helped get us there. There's other moving parts to the equation, and so
You're the
that-
original Gold Belly is basically the delivery.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
so-
we are.
Because you guys
Yeah.
you guys have your own trapping operation, right? Like that's
Yes.
part of the secret, is like you guys have your own boats, and I think you had a big facility in Southwest Florida, right? And in the
Yeah.
Keys,
Yes.
2 facilities. So I think that's a big part of it. Like, it's not just like, hey, open the door to the restaurant and start selling, crab claws.
True. We opened up our first fishery that's owned by the family back in 1967, and we opened it by, we had to buy land, we had to gain fishermen, we had to build buildings, we had to, process our own crabs versus buying them from the outside world. So we built relationships, we built a facility, we built vertical integration, and then about 4 years later, we also bought another fishery very close to the area, or actually in the area where Hurricane Ian hit. And so we had to, one was in Chokoloskee, and then we moved it to Everglades City. So we're talking over 50 years between, combined, it's over 100 years of fishery operation in the two locations between 1967 and 1972.
How did the hurricane affect you guys and your
facilities? The West Coast operation in Everglades City was before the traps were even thrown in the water. The boats had to move down the river or up the river to get away from the storm surge. So the crabs were on land. They're fine. They were tied down. The fishery had some minor problems. We lost a truck due to the storm surge, and we lost a forklift. So replacing a truck's not as easy as you think, just because there's such a shortage of vehicles right now. But we did it.
Right. You mentioned, and this is something that a lot of folks know, is just like the process of the crabs, right? Like that the claws are actually boiled on site. Like they're caught and boiled immediately at your facility, and then they're trucked over iced. Now, right. The thing that I find interesting is that stone crab season opens on the 15th. So you technically can't go harvesting until midnight of the 15th. So the couple days before, not just at Joe's, but at other places, you'll have access to frozen claws, that have been frozen, cryogenically frozen over the summer, and then you can have them. Can you tell the difference between claws that have been frozen and stuff that's got boiled earlier that day?
Yes, I can. However, there's a big difference between a really well-frozen claw and a not so well-frozen claw.
Versus frozen in my freezer versus whatever. Right. How do you guys do it?
Well, if you freeze them the day they're caught, within hours of having been caught and cooked, first you got to cook them. If you freeze them right away, they have and glaze them, they have a much longer shelf life and a fresher taste, because you've locked in the flavor and the integrity of the stone crab before it had a chance to degenerate. Right? Okay, right. So it's not breaking down. So you got to freeze them in super cold, conditions, and then then the next day we glaze them. Okay.
What does that mean?
Glazing is dropping a frozen claw into an ice bath, what you see football players sitting in. Not the same one.
Oh, that's so funny.
Those ice baths,
you just double up with the Dolphins. Just like get in there with like Tua's ice in his arm, and then just throw in some stone crabs.
Swim with the Dolphins, right?
You sleep with the stone crabs.
Right.
Ew.
So,
Stephen, so you mentioned
you got to charge more for those.
That like a little, if you know, is like if you can have them freshly out of the boiler. So like, if I was Joe Blow and I would love to have that experience, like, how could I go about doing that?
Where do you need to be, physically?
Where do I need to do that? Is there a way that I can do that? Like, can someone do that? How do you do that?
You got to call me, and then
this is like tipping
take us down to the boat,
or call the maitre d'.
Have 2 tickets to Sinatra ready.
Right. That's
I got my mangoes. Please, I want some fresh claws.
The gratuity to the maitre d' gets you a front row center seat at the boiling and red, like the Krispy Kreme red light. You get the stone crab red light, and when they come out of the water, actually, if you go down to the fishery, I can arrange that easily.
Interesting.
I'll meet you there. I haven't done it in decades.
Have you? But that you haven't had.
Wait, but do you put the mustard on it still?
No, you don't need to.
Oh.
There's no need for mustard when you take it directly out of the hot boiling water.
Because it's like boiled in like salty water, right? Like, so it's like you have all that.
You know what? We boil in fresh water between the two, but there are crabs that we don't like that are boiled in salt water, and I'll tell you how that's done or why it's done. In the Bahamas, for instance, the boats go out for weeks at a time. They have to boil in salt
right.
water because they're not going to lug around thousands of gallons of fresh water. Costs too much to do it. So they'll start out with fresh, but little by slowly, they end up with salt water from the ocean. They boil that and they boil it on the boats. So they're too salty and gamey tasting for me or for Joe's.
Where do those end up? The ones that come, those are being fished in the Bahamas?
They end up all over the United States too. They import them. They end up, some of them locally. We don't like those. I don't. I like the ones that we control from the Florida waters better. There are a couple of fisheries in the Bahamas that do it the way we do it, and they do it, and they really, they do a great job. It's just more expensive.
How far out into the water do you need to go?
That just depends. If that's a fisherman's mystery, they know where the crabs are. So they jot them down in their little notes. They know from GPS where to put their traps. They have their special places. The fishing grounds in the Bahamas is vast. It's really vast, and there's beautiful crab out there. It's just a question of how you process it. In the Florida Keys, they usually, let's see, I think they start out going into deep water, or they go in shallow water first, and then they go to deep water towards the end of the season. They shift, and they move around like crabs.
It reminds me, hearing the story of there's this family that owns a place called Hatcher Mango Hill up in Loxahatchee, and they will, like all the mangoes, they will only sell mangoes that they pull off the tree. They won't sell any that have fallen, because once they start to ripen around the seed, it gets a little bruised. And it's like, they're still delicious, but they're just like, we just won't. They'll make chutneys and stuff out of that and sell it. They're like, we refuse to sell any, but the ones that we have, the way that we have them, this is the way that we want it done. So it seems like
I respect that a lot.
Stephen, so who's going to take over Joe's when you're done toiling in that kitchen? Who's like, are your kids, are your grandkids interested?
My daughter's 9, Julia.
You were already in the kitchen working at 9. Get her in there.
Yeah, she's slacking.
She's been in. I mean, she started when she was 8. She honestly did. She was bagging bread for the holidays, and it's a family thing. I got the bag with her. I want to do the same thing with her that my parents did with me. There's no prerequisite. She doesn't have to work here. If she wants to go off to, law school, med school, fine. If she wants to be an artist, that's fine with me. Just do what you love to do. Her life to me is more important than who's going to back me up like that.
Amen.
I want her to be happy.
Amen. Amen. That's the way to do it. I remember my dad, who was, in this country, he was a million things, but the last thing he was a jeweler for about 23 years, a little mom and pop jewelry store. And he had floated like, hey, if you're interested in this business, but really what he wanted me to do is go get a degree where I could get a job working in air conditioning. That's what he wanted.
You're hired because, we have a wonderful AC company, but that is a big thing. You do really well with that.
Well, not in the industry of air conditioning, which is also very lucrative, but just that my job would be air conditioned. That tells you.
He wanted him to be inside.
I'm talking about the mentality of a Cuban farmer, Steve. Like the man was like,
my baby's not going to sweat.
If you get to work, the guy was born in 1927, probably 40 years before air conditioning became commercialized. So
wow.
He was like, air conditioning is important. You live in Florida.
I want you to be in it.
Stephen, so listen, you have been so gracious with your time, but we can't let you go until you play our game. You have to play our version of Kiss, Marry, Kill. I'm sure which is we do that with food. So we give you 3 items that you either have to kiss, meaning you have a short, hot fling with it, a marry, one that you love so much it's got to be part of your life, and one that you got to kill, one that you got to get rid of. So we're gonna hit you with the three Miami most popular.
Okay.
So let's say a cafecito, Cuban coffee,
I would. Okay.
a pastelito, and a croqueta.
Okay.
Which do you kiss, marry, kill?
Okay. Wow. I do. I have to pick all one for each one.
One for each
One
category.
For each one. One for each one.
Okay. So you got a cafecito. I would probably kiss.
Mm-hmm.
I would marry a pastelito. So I have to kill the croqueta.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
so.
That's the only option.
God.
It's a bad.
Okay.
It's a bad game. It's a bad game.
Yeah.
It's a tough.
because
It's a tough one.
I know.
Do you love?
I like
What do you
them
love
all.
about pastelitos? What are your favorite kind?
Well, let me put it because I love about pastelitos is because that basically food like that got me to the keto diet eventually. I had to go on the keto diet. Okay. I love Vicky Bakery. You know, I've been there, stood in line. I love the experience of that. And a lot of the employees that work here bring in pastelitos. They bring in the Cuban bread on Saturday and Sunday mornings, which I love, but I can't eat that right now, and I'm craving it, but can't do it. And a cafecito, how do you say no to a cafecito?
No,
we
you can't.
We make them in the kitchen here. You just can't say no. So I would say the croqueta, and I have a friend who works at City National Bank who loves croquetas, and we don't have them on the menu, but I make them for him when he comes here.
Oh, what do you put in them?
Ooh.
What do you put in the croquetas? Are they like
The crab.
seafood?
Crab
croqueta.
croqueta.
Oh.
Stone
Yeah.
crab croqueta, Stephen?
Exactamente.
No,
my
you're
God.
sitting on a gold mine. You don't even know it. That's amazing. I would eat 100 of those.
I would try one at least.
Okay.
Stephen, you have been so gracious with your time, man, and we really appreciate you talking stone crab with us, and really for keeping going an institution. You know, I'll be in with Sinatra tickets at some point this season after the 15th.
Good luck with that one.
Well, I'll be by with some mangoes from Kendall when the
Okay.
season is up.
Yeah, good luck.
Okay,
with
your
that, Amy.
table's waiting. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks, Stephen.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Stephen. Oh my God,
I mean,
that was so much fun.
because that guy is part of Florida history. Like that guy is a
Totally.
legacy
Totally.
of a Florida institution. A fourth generation Floridian. That alone is a rarity, and it makes sense
Yeah.
that his mom and grandma were big into buying properties around them. Like they were, like you said, playing defense. Like, oh man, all
Yeah,
these
they
people
were like,
are
no, I'm
coming
gonna
in.
keep all this. This is mine.
This is my stuff. We got to take care of this stuff. And if you look at that section of South Beach, it's like, it's really preserved. I mean, sure, you have like Prime 112 up the street, but even though that's in kind of a historic building, and you do have some historic buildings down there. So it's interesting that they have been a big part of, a big outspoken part of preserving a little bit of Miami culture, which is cool.
Yeah, no, that place is great, and I can't wait to go after the 15th. It'll be
Yes,
great.
I'm going to give it a month at least before.
Yeah,
That's one of
I
those
probably
things that,
I'm not
like,
gonna run.
I'll be honest. It's been a couple of years since I've gone to Joe's. I went once when I was a sports writer, and it was like the Dolphins were hosting like an event there for sports writers. Amy, can you imagine the scene of these degenerate, hungry sports writers just woofing down?
I think we need to explain
meat.
to our audience what the word lambone is,
Yes.
in order to fully appreciate what was happening right there.
See, sports writer, just
Yeah.
someone who just
lambone. It's like a Dominican
suckles-
word for a person who's just there to get whatever they can get
That's right. Who suckles at the teat of free
at the
stuff.
teat of the stone crab.
Yeah, yeah. All
It's
right.
okay.
Well, I
I would be a lambona for stone crabs. I think
yeah, it breaks you. The stone
It
crabs
does break you.
Yeah. Amy, that feels like a show.
I think you're right.
And
right,
and I
well-
am now hungry for stone crab, and I'm hungry for Vicky Bakery. So I'm gonna see.
Well, I'm gonna go
I
eat
can
some
fix those
beef
things.
tonight, so that's very, very off-brand for today's conversation. But I'm sure I'm gonna enjoy it anyway.
where are you going for beef?
Oh, my girlfriends are taking me to some place in Doral. Don't judge me. We're going to
boy.
Doral. It's one of my girlfriends ran the Chicago Marathon, and so we're celebrating by stuffing her full of churrasco. It's called Fuegos del Sur. One of those places in Doral.
You food by the pound almost. Give a shout
Yeah,
out
I'm
to your
gonna
friend.
eat- I'm gonna
Who's your
eat-
friend?
This much. I'm gonna eat this much churrasco.
Who's your friend? Give her a shout out.
My friend Lisa. She's a
All right, Lisa.
monster. She did
All
great.
right.
She PR'd too.
Very nice. All right, you and Lisa go eat that meat.
We will.
All
Bye.
right, peace out.